Welcome back to Nathan Bell's podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe and share with your friends. Today, Nathan will be talking about his diagnosis.
Yeah, well, I've been diagnosed with mental illness since I was about 17 years old. My diagnosis is bipolar schizoaffective disorder. I also have anxiety, and my psychologist has also said that I'm autistic. I certainly agree with all those things. I do have the mood swings of bipolar, and I do have the hallucinations and voices of schizophrenia. Certainly, sometimes when I'm unwell, I have very vivid hallucinations and I consider my hallucinations quite powerful, and I have in the past considered them spiritual. And I definitely have those mood swings of bipolar where I'll get very manic and have high mood and elevated thoughts and elevated thinking. And I definitely have autism as well. But what I want to say about my diagnosis is it doesn't include a lot of things, and that's because we don't do holistic diagnosis in this country. My diagnosis doesn't include my severe trauma. You know, I've seen a lot of hardship in my life. I've seen violence and suffering. I've been assaulted numerous times and stolen from. I've had property stolen. I've had people lie to me and cheat and betray me, and all of this causes trauma. And my diagnosis doesn't include trauma at all, and we don't seem to diagnose trauma enough in this country. I think psychiatry needs to start diagnosing trauma more. My view is that life is traumatic. You know, we're always battling against trauma. Even gravity in some way is a form of trauma because we're trying to move and we're always fighting against the force of gravity. It's this resistance that we face, this struggle we face to move forward in life. There's always some obstacle or some difficulty or some tribulation getting in the way and affecting us. And, you know, as we get older, we learn that things can go wrong, and things go wrong, and people wrong us and hurt us, and that causes us trauma. So I think everyone's traumatized to some extent. You know, we've all had hardship in our life, and we've all experienced suffering. We've been betrayed and we've been lied to. Some of us have been stolen from. So in my mind, everyone experiences some level of trauma, yet we don't seem to diagnose trauma. I'd appreciate, I accept the diagnosis of bipolar and schizophrenia, and I accept the diagnosis of autism, but I'd like my diagnosis to include severe PTSD, because I certainly have it, because many things have gone wrong that have upset me in my life. And my problem with the mental health diagnosis is it doesn't include an acknowledgement that I'm not satisfied with what's happened in my life. It just says that all of my behaviour, my exhibitions of stress and frustration are mental illness, and it doesn't acknowledge that I have a right to be frustrated and I have a right to be angry and stressed out. And I've said this before, you know, when I exhibit anger and frustration, it's because I'm not satisfied with what's happened in my life. People have stolen from me. People have hurt me. I've been assaulted. I've been attacked. I've been the victim of crime. And to just dismiss agitated, frustrated behaviour as delusional and irrational mental illness doesn't cut it for me. So I don't appreciate the diagnosis. I think it's too simplistic. You know, I'd like some acknowledgement that, people say, privileged people say, those people are suffering because of choices they made. Look, things have happened to me that were out of my control and that I didn't want to happen while I was acting with the right intentions. You know, there's been times in my life where I've been doing all the right things and making choices which I felt would further me and progress me into a better life, and then some arsehole steals from me, or I get broken into, or I get assaulted, and it just screws everything up. You know, that's not my choice. That was out of my control. So to say to dismiss my frustration and my anger with those situations as irrational instability of mood doesn't cut it for me. So this is what I don't like about the mental health diagnosis. I don't deny that I have the mood swings or the hallucinations or the voices, but I want some acknowledgement that if I exhibit frustration and anger, it's because things have gone wrong in my life. And we do this thing in this country and in the world where we don't want to acknowledge that anything has gone wrong for someone, and we want to say, everything that's gone wrong for you is your fault. No, it's not. You know, so many things happen in life that are out of people's control, and things happen that they didn't want to happen, and they get upset and angry and frustrated as a result. So we can't dismiss that as mental illness or as irrational behaviour. Now, about autism and having Asperger's and autism, me and my, I like to think that Asperger's people are in some way superior to other people. There's a lot of talk around how Asperger's people don't have good social skills and autistic people don't have good social skills. But what I find, honestly, I'm an excellent communicator, and I communicate in a very logical, rational, succinct way. And I believe that's because I'm autistic. And what I want to say about other people, normal people's communication skills, is I don't feel normal, average psychology people are good communicators. I think Asperger's people and autistic people are almost all savant geniuses, highly intelligent, highly capable, and better communicators and better thinkers than the general population. My view is the general population is disabled. I'm not disabled. The general population is disabled. Like, if you go around this country and you talk to some people, they haven't got a clue about anything. You meet people in the street, they're not engaged in politics, they don't understand science. All they think about is sex and partying, and paying their bills and paying their mortgage. They can't deal with complex issues. All autistic people I know are extremely eccentric people with very specific interests. That's part of autism, being obsessive and being obsessed with certain interests. Autistic people tend to become absolutely obsessed with subjects and learn absolutely everything about them. My view of the general population is most people just seem to be drifting through life with no clue about the universe and no clue of what's going on. Certainly there's a lot of intelligent people out there, but there's also a lot of really dumb people out there. So I think, when we label disability, we have to look at the fact that the reality is the general population are not very intelligent. And so why aren't we saying that the whole general population is disabled? There's so many people out there not engaged in issues, who don't know anything about politics, don't know anything about science, don't understand the nature of life, don't understand the nature of the universe. We should be calling the general population in general disabled because people aren't educated enough. I think it comes down to education, personally. I think the education system could stand to improve a lot, but I also acknowledge that a lot of people just don't have the capacity to understand some of these things. So I think that almost all autistic Asperger's people are savant geniuses, and I think many people with bipolar are also creative geniuses, and many people with schizophrenia are also creative savant geniuses. And I like to take a positive view of diagnosis where we say that bipolar is a benefit, and there are benefits to having bipolar, and schizophrenia can be a benefit, and there are benefits to having schizophrenia. I have powerful visions where I see things that aren't real. That's imagination. That's creativity. I see it as a superpower. It's like having a superpower. I can have psychic visions. I can see things that aren't there. My imagination can concoct entire visual experiences in my imagination. It's a superpower in my mind. I'm superhuman. I don't have a disability. I've got a gift, and that is my view of mental illness. So I'm sick of the dismal, negative diagnosis that doctors make. I want to start looking for the positive attributes of these conditions. And I've said in previous videos what they're going to do in the future, in the next 100 years, once genetic engineering reaches its peak and we can genetic engineer people and gene edit people, is they're going to start gene editing all mental illness out of the gene pool. And I disagree with that because I see there are benefits to having bipolar. I don't want, it's the idea that we have to cure all these people. Everybody needs to be cured. Well, I say no cure. Let's look at these conditions as positive things with positive attributes which are beneficial, and let's not seek to eradicate bipolar. Let's not seek to eradicate schizophrenia. I'm a no cure activist. I say these conditions are good, and that we need to learn to look at them differently and have a different view of what is happening. And now psychedelic research is showing us that we can place value in hallucinations, and we're starting to place value in hallucinations, and that is the future, and that will apply to schizophrenia as well. And we will start seeing these things as altered states of consciousness which are beneficial. So that's some of my views on diagnosis. I don't think it's holistic enough, and I fundamentally disagree with some of the interpretations of these conditions. So drop a comment in the comment section about mental illness and if you have a diagnosis or what you think about mental illness.